So I'm going to ask Joe and Amaris to respond to Gertrude Stein's statement on narrative. And then, once they've spoken, we'll add in Caroline and Steve just to respond in any way. Here's this is kind of famous in ModPo because we've really batted this around. And this is Stein at her most high-handed, I would say, and her most finger-wagging, which is the Stein I like. I think one naturally is impressed by anything having a beginning, a middle, and an ending when one is emerging from adolescence. American writing, oh, there it is. The American writing has been an escaping, not an escaping, but an existing with the necessary feeling of one thing succeeding another thing, of anything having a beginning and a middle and an ending. Oh, baby, that's... Okay, so I wanted Joe, and I think it was Amaris, to say something about that, and then we'll get started here. Joe, you want to start? What do you think of that?
It makes perfect sense to me. And I think it speaks to the resistance that a lot of people find in Stein, that not necessarily a novel or something that you would typically expect to have a narrative, but just that a poem should have a beginning, middle, and an end. When Stein is always kind of in the center, kind of branching out to me, just the enjoyment of being inside of her poems.
Yeah, that's really well said. I mean, one of the things that you're so good at, Joe, is you make really radical things sound perfectly plausible and routine and part of your daily existence. Because that resistance to narrative is a really hellacious thing, especially in the United States, I would think.
Yeah, well, I mean, I live with poetry every day. It's a part of my daily life. And so, yeah, especially this language itself. And Stein is the language, you know, and yeah. I'm comfortable there.
Yeah, that's great. I really enjoy listening to you talk about that kind of stuff. Amaris, what are your thoughts about Stein's little tirade against adolescent-like Americans wanting beginnings, middles, and ends?
Well, I think she's protesting against that, what we were talking about before, that this idea that language should have a legibility or a logical sequentiality, like Davy was saying. And by disrupting that, she's returning our attention to language and how language shapes our perceptions of the world, of how we make sense of things.
Yeah, that's well put. Thank you. Caroline, hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I am great. I'm happy to be here.
Good. Are you homesick?
No.
Really? Wow.
I love London. And my mom and sister are going to be here tomorrow, so that helps.
Oh, okay. They're coming.
Yeah, so I love how Stein lays out her approach to language here and suggests that you can take this collaging approach to language and return to more childlike mode of looking at language as something playful and that doesn't need to be understood or got in the traditional sense, and instead thinking about sound and color and shape of poetry.
Caroline, can you hold on one sec? Erica just dropped out. I was hoping to say goodbye to her. She had to leave. She makes her excuses, but she wrote that she was moved to tears by Dee's call, and I just wanted to share that. Caroline, so let me ask you a question. You and I live in a city and a state and a culture, a coast at least, or you're from the left coast, but whatever. Right? You're from Palo Alto or something.
Yeah, California.
Yeah. And everything is really about the end, the takeaway. Like, let's get there. Where are you going? What are your takeaways? That's the way commercial transactions take place. You would never engage in them if there wasn't an end, right? And we live in a culture where people are avoiding spoilers, right? No, don't spoil it for me. No. In ModPo, it's like, yeah, we're going to spoil it for you. History teaches what history teaches, that history teaches. That's the spoiler. Right? The whole idea that people could be afraid of spoilers because it will ruin the ending. What? So how does this have anything to do with, why is Stein so seemingly mad and frustrated by that culture? And is there really an alternative that one can live that's not subject to beginnings, middles, and ends?
Yeah, well, I think that when we focus too much on the chronology and the set destination or ending and place to which we're headed, we lose sight of what comes in the middle and what comes in the beginning and all the shifting and collaging that goes on. And I think that Stein really liberates me to enjoy more of the process and enjoy more of the journey without focus too much on what we're getting out of this or what transactional outcome might be attained.
Transactional outcome, yeah. I mean, you wouldn't be reading poetry if you were looking for transactional outcomes. Right? I mean, it's just like not, okay. Jeremy, while I'm turning to Steve, would you bring the mic up to Damodar and also Jill, who are sitting next to each other? And we have a phone call. So let's go to Steve first, then we'll take the phone call, and we'll ask Damodar and Jill to respond to the phone caller. What's going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen.
I love this. I love this passage. It's beautiful, and I don't have any kind of outcome really to say about it, other than there's 4 words which I think are really crucial. One is the word emerging, partly because I hear it as merging rather than emerging, which, and emerging isn't a kind of a succession, is it? It's kind of a fusing, and there's something kind of being fused together in this passage. So I think that's a really key word. The other one is adolescence, which kind of brought me up short, and I'm thinking, why adolescence? I mean, that's such a delicate, fragile time. And I think partly maybe adolescence is an interesting word because it's a beginning, but it's a beginning that comes in the middle of something, right? It's a new phase of life.
Yes,
So
that's what, and she's sort of suggesting, Steve, that emerging from adolescence almost has an irony about it.
Yeah.
She's sort of suggesting that, I mean, I'm not calling Joe Massey an adolescent, but it's possible that if you say, I think what I'm going to do is just go write poetry every day, and I'm going to figure out how to live beyond that. And Joe's one of the people who does that, one of the poets who does that. Okay. So American culture is likely, and maybe Joe has a story of personally hearing people wonder, like, Joe, when are you going to, put on a suit and tie and get a job as a financial trader? Emerging out of adolescence means get a degree, get a job. And then Laureen Niederker says...
The transactional outcome is what...
life is a transactional outcome. And phases of life are... who said you have to go from adolescence to suit and tie, salary, kids, retirement, grandparent, walker, death? Who said that has to be a beginning, middle, and end, or it has to be conceived that way?
Yeah.
Why can't we just do it the other way?
I think Stein's telling us to do it the other way, perhaps, or to at least experiment with doing things differently, to live differently.
I think she's a radical social critic or a radical psychological critic or something like that. She's criticizing our conception of adolescence. No, Josh feels that. The problem is that Josh is like, he's stuck in a system. He knows he is. Yeah? You do? Okay, we'll extract you from it somehow.